Welcome back in, men, to this, the final episode in my 6-part mini-series on becoming a better man. And this is episode 6, Style and Presence. Become the man who owns the room. Today's episode is going to be themed around embodied confidence and internal mastery. Men feel invisible because their appearance and energy don't reflect their inner growth. Some of the things we're going to focus on today is the psychology of appearance, how grooming, posture, and dress signal identity, why masculine style isn't about fashion, it's about confidence, and how presence is felt before it's seen, and how to project quiet power. Let's get right into it right now. A lot of men who've been on the hero's journey and have done a lot of self-inventory, you've been through self-solitude, you've been through leveling up, focusing on your business, finding your purpose and your mission in life. And going through that process is very difficult, for sure. And as a man, it's paramount that you go through all of that. But a lot of men tend to forget about things like style and presence, partly to do with it being, because it's potentially around fashion and things like that, they can deem it to be feminine, ultimately too self-consumed, I would say. But as a man, you have to present to the world. Present, okay? And that is about aligning the inner growth with the outer growth. And so your style, the way you carry yourself, your hygiene, your haircut, everything around that is a reflection of all that hard work that you've been putting in when you've been in monk mode, when you've been in solitude, when you've been rebooting your masculinity. And that's all very well to be sort of under the hoodie, working out in your own world and rebuilding. And that is a valuable time for men, as we've spoken about in this series. But at a certain point, it's time for you to come out into the world. And if you don't have an understanding of presence and of style, you will fall foul in society. Men have to know how to create and evoke feeling. And you can do that in a myriad of different ways based on your personality, who you are, your authentic, who you are as a man. Some guys do it through very grounded and masculine, and that's, one way of doing it. Other men do it through charisma. They do it through humor and lightness. And to me, I believe it's actually prudent to take a little bit of all of those aspects of a man and sort of create your own avatar, how you are going to present into the world. But something that you do have to consider and you do have to think about. It doesn't just come naturally. And unfortunately, not all of us had fathers that we could idealize and model this from. But this is historically how men developed their outer masculine, the presence, also looking at the culture and things like that historically. But these days, unfortunately, because masculinity has been under attack for the last 50 years, even the successful men in the modern era are hyper feminized. You think about pop stars and actors, a lot of them are unfortunately on the woke train and have doubled down into that feminine space as their dating strategy ultimately. But we do have obviously great men now that are showing up in the space and sort of demonstrating to you guys what masculine is and what it isn't. And so you can see how important that style is. And it comes down to learning taste at the end of the day. And that is something that is difficult to do if you don't have the right mentorship, because you have to learn it. It doesn't just happen. You have to understand the difference between a great suit that fits, that's classic and timeless, and something that's either hyper stylized to fit in or just completely like terrible and bland. And there's a very fine line between that, because if you have two suits, they're both plain, they're generally black, gray, navy blue, and it's all in the way that hangs off you, how it fits, how it looks. And you have to have an eye for that. You have to know and learn style. And to do that, you can certainly look back to the greats on this one. the classic gentlemen of our times before today. You got to go back really to at least the 60s and 50s for that one, in my opinion. But that classic gentleman look, particularly when you are either going out on a date or business to some level. But again, this is key, which is to reading the room of, depending on where you are, the appropriate attire is going to change. For example, the appropriate attire to a business meeting in LA is actually very different than even New York, and different than London, and different than Berlin, and different than Miami. They're all very different because they sort of respond to the environment. And that's another thing to consider, which is what room reading is. It's just being observant of the energy in the room and on the room you're about to walk into. And so if you roll in with a 3-piece suit to a lunch in LA, you're actually going to look like a fool. You're going to look overdressed, and it won't deem well for you if you are trying to do business. And so it's important and imperative that you sort of read the room, you understand where you're going, where you are, getting clothes that represent you as a man in all versions of yourself, whether that be at the top end of your business, to date nights, to going to the gym, to just being incognito mode, or you want to be seen mode. You know, there's all these different spaces you can be in depending on where you're at in your life and where you're at and how you feel in the day. Some days you just want to, put your sweats on, and just go hat on, shades, and do the incognito thing. Yeah, you just play into the different avatars and looks that you might want to evoke. But if you're out and you want to meet new people and you're trying to be open, that energy has to be communicated through the clothes that you're wearing and the energy that you bring when you step into a room. Because there's so many different ways you can walk into a room. You can walk into a room and be like, just sort of head down, just, really barely saying anything. Or you can come in and be very open and spread yourself as wide as possible and be very relaxed and say hello to the bartender and get yourself known. It depends where you're at. And that's up to you as a man. But there's all these different stages and different aspects of that style and presence. So key is having good, dress suit and smart casual wear, good sports gear, looking good. Don't just show up to the gym looking like a numpty. I think there's something about just creating and carry on that style wherever you are. Take care of yourself. Make sure your hair's always looking decent. A good cologne is hugely important. Things like that. And all of these factors that create the man that you are when you walk into a room. And the more you have built down from the psychology of who you are, the more you've gotten to know who you are through this becoming a man process, becoming a better man, the more you'll be able to transmute all of that internal into the outward expression. And that's what it is. It's an expression, and you should express. Men can be creative and expressive without being feminine. Okay, it's a different way of doing it. And so psychology of appearance and grooming, posture, all of that, everything I'm just talking about is hugely important as how you hold yourself as a man and how you'll be interpreted by other men and by other women. And when you're expressing yourself through fashion, through clothing, it's not about the fashion like it is for women. It's more about coherence. And that you are aware, you have this consciousness about yourself, that you're delivering a certain thing. It doesn't just happen, this shit. You learn it, and if you haven't learned it, you have to learn it. And that's the way it goes. And the more you have that dialed, the more attractive you are in the world, period. It all plays in to the complete reclaiming of your masculinity. And it's not about being flashy either. It's just about being classic and confident. Knowing that your presence is felt before it's seen is you stepping in immediately happens. And that energy is read from everyone in the room. It's very important to understand that, and therefore to understand the value of space, of silence, of holding the line, taking a breath before you respond. Don't be just jumping in and trying to be the, life and soul of the party and all that, and being loud and trying to get in every conversation. The man that just stands and observes and is present, he's not standoffish, but he's just taking it all in. And then when he does say something, it is of great value because he's considered it all. He's considered everything. And then now finally he contributes. And that one line that makes people think, or it's an inquisitive statement to make, will just bring people in. And it all comes back to that storytelling and being aware of all this stuff and using avatars in the world that you respect, other men you respect, that you look up to sort of create your own. Pull a bit from here, pull a bit from there. And that goes for style as well. It's the good thing for men is when you get it right, it doesn't take a lot. We don't need endless outfits and all this shit like women do. No, you can get away with just the basics, and that can get you a long, long way, particularly when you're on the build, when you're on the rebuild. And a lot of married men will have dropped the ball on this, or their girlfriends or wives will be imposing their style on them and sort of dressing them like boys. Oh, you look good in this, sweetie. And now you've been emasculated through this woman who's sort of dressing you up like a Ken doll or something. And that's because she doesn't trust your style. That's why that's happening. She doesn't trust your choice. So you must take advantage and take the initiative to discover that. And the single men, you build that from the ground up, and that will attract the women that you want, as well as the business that you want. For the married men, you'd have to recalibrate that and reclaim your masculinity by stopping wearing what she's telling you to wear and get interested in it to a point, and it doesn't mean it's not just for women. This is about your business. It's about how you carry yourself. And everybody knows how good you feel when you've just had your hair cut, right? And you come out of the barbers and you just feel that week of just, you're sharp, you feel sharp. That is a powerful thing that not just haircut does, but all aspects of your grooming and style that is imperative that you do as men, no matter what age you are. But, read the room, fit the style of your age relevance. If you're an older man, you don't need to be wearing the freshest fits of the style that's going on right now. And if you're a young lad that's inexperienced, you don't need to be wearing a 3-piece suit. You look like an idiot. It's like, find your space and dress accordingly and relative to where you're at. And get awareness around that. And if you don't have awareness, you need help and support and reflection. And, that's what this is about. That's what I do here with the BetterMan Academy and with the systems that I've built. It's not just about psychological warfare within yourself. There's so many aspects to what being a better man is. And so take all of that into account as we come to the end of this episode and just really consider everything that we've spoken about in the last 6 episodes, because each piece is so vastly important, and it's going to take you a second to incorporate it and embody it all. But really sit with this and really consider how you would want to look, how you want to feel when you walk around, and the clothes that you wear, and just start to really embody that. And you will then project that energy outwards. The stuff, all the work you've been doing will finally externalize through the presentation of yourself. So you can now understand the 6 codes of masculine mastery, but this is just the surface. So inside the BetterMan Academy community, you'll rebuild your life from the ground up with full access to every module, framework, and guidance to become the man that you are. If you haven't already, check out this video right here, which is my video on how to become a better man. I hope you found this mini-series helpful and useful. And like I said, if you want to go deeper, it's time for you to join the BetterMan Academy. And you can do that by clicking the link in the description. And I will see you in there. Appreciate all the support. Appreciate all the love, lads. And I'll see you on the next one. Peace.